Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be making a few centerpieces for a farmhouse style table. My cousin purchased a new farmhouse table and she needs a centerpiece to go on it. And I decided to make a few of them so that she had something to choose from. So I'm just going to start with this little basket. And I thrifted it and it was black, but I don't want to keep it black, so we're going to be painting it the color buttercream. And I'm just kind of brush coating that on. I'm putting a good thick coat on the inside and outside. And I'm not worrying about full coverage because I want it to have somewhat of a distressed look. And painting this basket this way is a very messy job because I want a good thick coat. But it doesn't matter that it's messy because if there's some drippiness on it, then to me that just gives it more of a distressed look. So I'm not taking a lot of paints with this. I'm just kind of putting it on there in a good thick coat. And once I get this covered well and let it dry well, which it takes a little bit to dry, I give it about an hour because it's pretty thick, then I just take it outside and spray it with a clear coat. And now I also thrifted these bottles. So I just found 4 bottles that I thought would fit in this, and they fit snugly in that the end ones I have to kind of catty corner them. But I feel like it's going to look right. If it doesn't, then I'll figure out something else to do than what I have in mind. But I'm giving these a coat of the buttercream as well. Actually, I have to put 2 coats on these. And I did take these outside and spray a clear coat on them first because sometimes it's hard to get that first coat of paint to stick to glass. So I just went ahead and just sprayed them just to be on the safe side. What I've lost the footage of, and I don't know if maybe I missed taking it, but I took some tissue wrap and that had kind of a lace pattern on it, and I cut probably about a 5-inch strip and decoupaged that around the center of each of my bottles. And now I'm stamping with white ink and with the typesetting stamp from IOD, the word home. And now I'm just going to take my little cutter here and cut these letters out in a square, or I guess it's a rectangle. And I'm using an X-Acto knife here to cut because that little tool that came with it, I've misplaced it. So an X-Acto knife worked just fine. And I don't think I mentioned that this is craft paper that I got at the Dollar Tree that I'm stamping these on. And I'm using just the white ink. So after I Mod Podged that letter in the center of these little strips of tissue wrap, I just used regular printed tissue wrap. But you could use any decoupage paper, or you could maybe even use some old book pages. You could really put just about anything in the center of this that you wanted, and then put your stamp over the top of that on your square, which wouldn't have to be craft paper. It could be just whatever coordinates with your base. But I decided here that I wanted this to have a little bit more of a cottage feel, so I'm just taking some lace. You could use any trim that you want, but I'm just taking some lace and gluing that with hot glue around the top of each of these bottles. And then I'm going to take that same lace and glue a strip around the top and bottom of this tissue wrap here. And I think that just kind of adds to this. There was a few places with this that I didn't get a good even strip, and that just kind of hides that and also finishes these little bottles off. Now, generally, when I'm doing a table centerpiece, I like to have it look the same on the front and the back, or at least similar, so that from each side of the table, it would look good. But with these bottles, because I had to angle those two end bottles, you're not going to be able to see the other side of that bottle. So I have the back of it looking good, but it's not going to say home on the back because there was just no way to make that happen the way I had to angle these. I hope you guys collect bottles because they're so versatile to use in so many different crafts, but I think they work really well for this. And I think, again, these are some sort of liquor bottles. I was able to buy maybe 10 or so of these in a little wooden tray for $4 at the thrift store. So I thought that was a really good deal. And there this one is finished. And like I said, I feel like this one has more of a cottage look. And I put some lamb's ear in these that I got from Walmart. But now for the third item, I'm going to start with this little cutting board riser. It already had some sort of just block feet on it, but I want to distress this a little, so I'm sanding just around the raised edges, and then I'm going to take some brown wax and go over this, and that will seal that black if it wasn't already sealed, but it also gives that distress a lot better look. And where the other riser was more of a cottage look, this one is going to be more farmhouse. And so we're going to go with just black and white on this one. And I didn't bother to paint that bottom because it wasn't painted to begin with. And here I'm just adding buttercream. I'm putting buttercream on these bottles. And I first mixed that buttercream, which is a Dixie Belle color, with half baking soda because I wanted quite a bit of texture here, and I'm just kind of dabbing that paint on instead of brushing it on because that just adds to the texture. But I do have to give them a couple of coats, and now I am using my typesetting stamps from IOD, and I am just going to stamp directly onto the bottle here. You just have to be really careful. But I'm going to stamp it directly onto the bottom because I want to stamp on that texture because I really like how the stamps look on these textured bottles. But I do use something on the bottom to measure so that I make sure that all these letters are lined up with each other. And then once I get these letters on, then I take this outside and spray clear coat on these. Now I could use a clear wax here. But it was just easy for me to take them out and spray them. And I just recently bought this typesetting stamp, and I'm really, really loving it. I just love how crisp the letters turn out. And this centerpiece is going to take the least amount of time because all I did was just dab 2 coats of that paint on these bottles after I did clear coat them first so that they would stick. And then I'm wrapping some jute twine around the top of this bottle and then kind of gluing it in place with hot glue. And I do this with all these bottles, and then that's really all that I have to do to this one except put some greenery in there. And I don't use a whole pick on these. I just cut some sprigs off a pick. And I think it was barely over 1 pick that I used for this one set. I think the hardest part about this one is just finding 4 bottles that will match. And I guess they wouldn't really have to match. They could just be similar. But I really like how these turned out with that black and white and green. And now for my third centerpiece, I'm just taking a 2x6 and I've cut a length of it, the length that I need for the items that I'm putting on this, and sanded it well. And now I'm going over it with some watered down brown wax and a few drops of black paint added. Now add that black paint to darken this wax and also get rid of any red tint that it might have, because I don't want a red tint at all. And I decided to go ahead and do the bottom of this one as well. The only thing about that is I'm going to have to let it dry well before I glue the riser feet on it. But I was able to purchase several of these little cup style riser feet in a couple of different sizes, and so I've used these a lot. And now I'm just taking the color cotton and putting a couple of coats on these, and then I'll have to seal them with some clear coat. Any kind. You could use a clear wax, or you could use just a spray clear coat. And here, once I've let the wax, this board dry well with the wax, then I'm just gluing these little riser feet on, and I'm using Tight Bond Thick and Quick, and then putting just a couple little drops of hot glue on each of these, so that I have some immediate hold also. And then that's a simple way to make a little riser. And now I've decided for this riser, I want it to be bird themed. So I start out by painting a couple of small candlesticks. And these candlesticks were black. And now I'm just putting a couple of coats of the color cotton, which is a Dixie Belle color, and let that dry well. And then I do a little bit of distressing, a little bit of water distressing on this. I just take a damp cloth and wipe around the raised edges and let some of that black come through. So these two little candlesticks are just going to be a couple of bases for what I'm doing here. And this is a third base. I've just taken a piece of Luan and cut a circle just slightly bigger than the glass cloche that I'm going to be putting over the top of this. And I've cut some little twigs from in the yard, and after I take half of a styrofoam ball and glue that to the bottom. I've painted this one green. I had previously painted several so that I could use them this way, but it probably wouldn't have been necessary to paint this one because I'm going to be covering it up with moss anyway. But I just glue that on, and now I'm just kind of sticking some of those little twigs into this styrofoam. And I have to be careful to check by putting my the glass cloche on there to make sure that what the items that I'm putting on here are going to fit, so that I can clip them as I need to and remove what doesn't fit. Because when you put that cloche on there, I want some height so that it comes up to the top of the cloche, but I don't want so much in there that it looks squished when I put that cloche on there. So here I am just kind of testing that to make sure that what I'm doing is working. Now my plan here is to mimic tree branches here. So I'm just kind of putting some little twigs to mimic part of a tree branch, and then I'm going to just take some moss and cover that the bottom of this where the styrofoam is when I'm finished. And I had this little piece of floral here that looks like some blooms from a dogwood tree, and so like I said, I wanted this to look more like a tree branch and not like just some flowers inside a cloche. So I'm also adding this little piece of dogwood. And I don't even know where I got this little dogwood piece from, but this is honestly the only piece I have left. So I thought it would work perfectly in this. And now here I am just adding that moss to cover up that styrofoam. And once I get that covered, then I'll just add that glass globe on there. And this was just a little globe that you find in lights, in hanging lights that goes over the candle or over the light bulb. And I'm just using that as a cloche here. And you can honestly put anything inside these little cloches that you want. You could even put a little bird in here, but because I plan on using a bird in a different area on this little riser, this one I just wanted to mimic part of the tree. So, like I said, I'm just gluing this moss on here until I kind of get a natural look. And then I'll just put that little globe on the top. And because this base is only slightly smaller than this, or only slightly larger than this globe, then I was afraid the globe would fall off easily. So I found this little knob, and it's a heavy knob, but it's some sort of plastic or resin. It was very old, and so I just put a couple of coats of the color cotton on that, and then sealed it. And now, and I didn't show it, but I just glued that down inside the top of that little cloche. And now I'm working on another little, this one's just a little vase that I'm just putting some moss in here and some little twigs and just kind of mimicking a nest. And I've made some clay. I just used some air dry clay and made some little eggs. And now I've just put those in the top of this little nest, and that's all that one is going to have in it. And now I've taken one of my little concrete birds that I got at the Dollar General, and I'm painting it kind of a pale yellow, a warm pale yellow, and I think this is the color Rebel. And put a couple coats on that, and now I'm using some white wax so that white wax settles down in the little detail. And now the bird can sit on that candlestick and the little vase on the other short candlestick. And I thought that made a cute little arrangement. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.